It's 4 o'clock on a Monday. You know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Woohoo, baby! This week, starring regularly appearing very special guest, Mr. Steve Barden. Yeah. And there he is. And there goes the fake band, and there goes the fake audience. Hello, Steve.
Hey, Michael.
We've been
Seems
hanging
like I was
out.
just here.
Yeah, it does, and I'm glad to see you back. We're both still alive, which is good news.
Yep.
Let's say hi to our friends in the chat. Hello, Darren Moss, Timothy Cook, Edmund Red, Bob Gunnerfelt, Gloria Covington, Dean Turner, Cass McKenty. Let's see, El Raso Emil, Giovanni Lanza. Oh, you sound like a movie star. Hello from Italy. Hello, Giovanni. That's a great name. Giovanni Lanza. Sounds like, should have a cool hat and glass of limoncello or something. Rick Cabot, Podmore, Songs from a Headband, Stephen Patty, Janet Brooks, Dan Weber, Jesse J. Peck, Spiritual, Carl Wurzbach. Wow, a show with Steve is like a visit from the gods. That's giving you a lot of credit. That's a lot to live up to.
No
Paul
pressure.
House, right? Ian Shortall, Floyd Armlin, Sidekick Entertainment, Marion Lane, Mike Elizondo. Hello, Mike Elizondo. Anyway, Alan McCool, man, big turnout today. Dave Barrett, Sherry Marcus Milano, Debbie Ward, Greg Carosa. All right. So I want to let you guys know, and the people who will watch the archive of this, anytime we do a remote split screen like this, even though we've got good solid technology, it still isn't perfect. And, just things that you don't even think of, like short headphone cables that don't let Steve scoot farther back from his camera. And things like, he's got plenty of great bandwidth, but as you might remember from the last time we did a remote with Steve, he went black about 5 times, and we had to refire him up. So just hang in there. Just know that if one or the other screen goes dark, we'll get it back together. We're doing the best we can, and we've tested all systems. And for those who might later send me an email saying, there's a way to do it with a mixer and a this and a that and the other thing, anytime you want to fly over and show me how to do that. I mean, neither of us are audio idiots. Maybe I'm giving us both too much credit, but smarter folks than me have tried to figure this out, and we're good. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn Steve loose and only interject stuff every now and then. We like his face big. Good. You are a little bit out of frame. You got to move slightly to your left. There you go. Now you're perfectly in frame.
Okay. I'll try to maintain this position, but you can keep reminding me.
Yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, I asked Steve to do a light, breezy acoustic bass cue this time. Reason being that a lot of people are not keyboard players. About half of our members play keyboards, half play guitars or stringed instruments. And my wife watches a couple of shows on HGTV that just use a ton of acoustic and or electric guitar cues. And I'm always saying, I really need to do another one of those. Because Steve did one for us kind of like 3 or 4 years ago already with a dobro and an acoustic. But
that was a fun one.
Yeah, I thought we should do an updated version. So here we go. Tell them what you're going to do, Steve.
So today, boys and girls, we're going to do, it's going to be primarily guitar-based. I think you dubbed it light and breezy or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how to describe it, but it's, it's not overly happy. It's not sad at all. In fact, I've decided I'm naming the cue Home Sweet Home because that's where I am right now, like everybody else.
Right. Whether you want to be there or not, you are.
So we're going to create it's going to be primarily acoustic guitar. I am going to add some other elements to enhance the cue, but again, it's primarily guitar. I'm not like the last time I was here, I composed really just off the top of my head. I have worked this piece out and actually did some run through. So we're going to try some things, and we might not end up using them in the final mix, but we'll see. I've got a couple different guitars I'm going to use, and we'll just see what sounds best for this particular cue. So the idea is to be light and breezy, which means I almost consider this more of like a wallpaper kind of a sound. There really isn't going to be a melody. It's more of just an accompaniment to keep the scene moving. And this could be a little bit melancholy, but it's going to be more on the more positive side of the scale.
So this might be good for a scene on HGTV where somebody has just decided that grandma's house that they inherited, they're going to remodel the whole house, and now the remodel is done and the family's coming back being a bit nostalgic but tickled pink at the remodel?
Sure.
Okay. I like
whenever
Steve. He goes along with whatever I say.
Whatever you say. When I compose something, I actually try to visualize a scene in my head, how this music will be used, and I don't really have adjectives or ways to describe how this is used, other than it's just to keep the scene moving, and it's sort of positive. It's not really uplifting like a fanfare, but it just keeps moving forward. So, go ahead.
I've got to plug the book because it's excellent. Several people have already commented that they've got the book. Somebody said Steve is articulate. Why, yes, he is. And he was particularly articulate. Try and say that 5 times quickly. I've read the book twice. I love it. If you want to get into doing instrumental cues for TV, you can't not have this book if you like double negatives as much as I do. It's a must-have, so I recommend it. I don't make a penny when you buy it. There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, how we're going to create this song, I'm going to start off with an acoustic guitar. However, I am going to lay down a piano track just to lay down the chords, so I have something to play against. It just kind of helps me kind of set the tone. It's going to be in a major key. Major keys are generally positive and happy, whereas minor keys are sad and the saddest keys of all. I've chosen the key of G because G is a guitaristic key. It features a lot of open strings, and open strings are great for acoustic guitars. Other keys would be E, A, D, but I chose the key of G. Now the chord progression I picked, I'm gonna create this in A, B, A format. So there'll be an A section. It's actually going to be a repeated A section, A1 and A2. Then I'm going to go to a B section, which is going to be similar but different enough, and you'll hear the difference. And then I will go back to an A section, and I will do a repeat of A1 and A2. I've timed this out. It's going to be roughly 1.5 minutes long, so good enough for a production music cue. The chord progression is going to be, I'm going to start with a G. I'm going to be moving up the bass line. I'm going to ascend G, B, C, D. So I've got So why am I going to do that? That implies motion. Things are moving. If and it also sort of creates tension because you're expecting it to go somewhere. It's like if somebody came and walked in your house and you have a piano and somebody just walked in and went and left, you'd be screaming. Where is that last note? There's the tension. I need the release. So we're getting the same thing with the bass line. So it's going to be moving up. So let me just and then let me talk about the bridge. So it's a G chord, then a G with a B in the bass, it's the third, then up to a C, and then up to a D. Okay, and then it's going to go back to G. So when I get to the B section, the bridge, we're going to be going into in E minor 7. So an E minor 7 is the relative minor of a G major chord. So in essence, it's the same tonality. There's the G chord. If I add an E in the bass, okay, we're getting the same tones, but we've changed the flavor of it a little bit to a minor. And then I'll go into a B minor, and then back to the C and D. All right, and then we're going to go back to the G again. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to record a reference track on the piano, and then I'll go ahead and jump in to do the first guitar track. Okay, we ready?
I'm ready.
Hope this works.
That makes two of us. Actually, makes a lot of us. Oh, I should mention, by the way, we have had a little bit of weirdness with bandwidth, even though we both have great bandwidth at home. So if things crap out and we don't go dark, if it just sounds a little wonky or something, don't worry about it. Ultimately, Steve will post a link, which we'll make sure is posted below the video and in the comments as well, so that you can hear the finished product later. This is really more about education than fidelity or bandwidth.
Yeah, and there'll be no doubt that I'll have to clean some stuff up before I do the final mix, and But essentially, what I'm going to do today is going to be the track. So okay, so here's the reference track. Anything I do with MIDI, you're going to be able to hear, but when I record anything with the microphone, the acoustic guitars, you're only going to hear the guitar until I play it back, because that's the way we roll. Okay, here we go. And I don't know what that was.
That was a really short cue.
Well, one, the metronome didn't continue, and oh, okay, I know what the problem is. I have a synth pad, and it must still be set. Okay. All right, let's try this again. All right, hope this works. Okay, the piano is playing, but it's also playing the synth pad, and I don't want that. Why are you doing that? Well, let's just mute that. That is not a piano.
See, I told you he was smart.
Oh, I know why. Okay, dumb. This only happens when you're trying to do something important in front of a lot of people. Okay, here we go. Here's the bridge. Oh, and I made a mistake. See, I forgot the tune already.
Buy the book. Buy the book.
I wrote a chart. I wrote this chart, and I'm not looking at it. I thought I remembered how it goes. Okay, when you watch this later, just skip past all this part. Okay, it's 2 bars for each chord. That was my mistake. All right, we get it this time.
Okay.
Yeah, here we go. Oh yeah, it's feeling good now. This doesn't exactly feel light and breezy yet. Wait until the guitar comes in. All right, here's the B section. B section's half as long as the A. Now we're back to the A. Last A. And resolve. Okay, that's it. So that's a reference track. Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was amazing. Best reference track ever played on Taxi TV. Congratulations.
Okay. So now we're going to try to record a guitar. So this is where I'm going to have to take these headphones off, and I'm not going to be able to hear you if you talk to me. But you should be able to hear me still talk.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, let me make sure it sounds. Okay, great. So I have to turn off the main speakers while I record the guitar so we don't get feedback. And you'll just hear the guitar, but when I play it back, then you'll hear everything together.
This is the part where we all tell jokes about Steve.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't move her because I got to be in front of the microphone. Sorry.
What a prima donna.
The fidelity's not going to be great because I've got several computers on. Normally, I would go into the sound booth behind me to do a guitar track, but for this, I have to do it this way. So. Okay, and you'll notice also I'm going to be using this common pedal tone between all the chords, which is this D note. Okay, but we have this bass ascending, G, B, C, D. All right, let's see if this works. Okay, I hit a couple of bad notes there. All right, still with me?
Yep. More clams than a Howard Johnson's on Wednesday night.
Thank you for the encouragement.
Right? Anybody under 50 has no idea what I'm talking about.
Oh my God! All right, let me just play back the. Well, I'm not even going to play the piano part with it because it's just a scratch. But I'm going to just play back the guitar part. Oh, let's turn up the speakers. Okay, so for the sake of saving time, since I do need to redo that track anyway, I'm going to just do it right now.
We're all ears.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we're going to be able to get through this in the allotted time here. So it's a short piece. Okay, one more try.
Okay.
They used to call me First Take Steve.
Used to, right? And just so you know, for anybody that's never watched the show before, I know Steve well enough to have fun.
I can't hear you.
I know.
All right. Okay. You still there?
Yep.
Good. Me too.
And no clams.
I did much better. And
Practicing. Good job.
all right, I'm just going to play a little of it back. Okay, so it seems like it's all there. All right, so let me talk about just the guitar part first of all. I chose this finger picking style, so I've got a constant eighth note pattern going, which gives the piece movement. So you've got motion going from the finger picking pattern, but then you've also got motion from the ascending bass line. And then we're going to add other little instruments to kind of change the tone of the piece, and keep it moving in different ways. So what I'm going to do next is record an alternate guitar track using a nylon string guitar, because I'm not sure if the steel string is really the sound I want. I might end up blending them later. I'm going to play the same part, but I'm going to just use a different style of guitar. So let's do this. I need to mute the first guitar, so it'll throw me off. Put the metronome back on. And here we go.
I thought you left the room there. Oh, that's right. He can't hear me.
Alrighty then.
Some people have asked some questions, but I think I'm going to save them until after you're done. I want to keep you on task and make sure we get this thing done. But questions like, what kind of mic, how do you mic it, what kind of strings, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to save that stuff till later so we can just rattle them right off.
Yeah, those things would be good for the end, for sure. Yeah, unless there's anything, about the composition or, anything like that we might want to touch upon. So let me just play back a little of this guitar. Okay, so that works. God, I wish I could quantize live guitar. it would save me a little time. I'm going to leave that track as is. I could improve upon it, but for the sake of moving forward, let's just move on. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to, I have another guitar part I'm going to lay over the top, but I'm going to do that one at the end because I want to introduce these other parts now. So what I'm going to do is go to the piano again, and I'm going to get rid of the scratch track. So I'm going to do a couple things with the piano. So I'm going to use the low end of the piano instead of like a bass guitar to fill in the low end. I'm not going to introduce it into not in the first 8 bars. I'll bring it into the second 8 bars, and then it's just going to follow the bass lines. That's all. Later on in the piece, when we get to the end, from the middle section on out, I'll be adding some little high parts, to add a little color to it. But first, let's just do a bass line. I'll start it from the beginning. So what I'm going to be playing is just a double whole note, and it's just for each two measure phrase, it's just going to be holding out the low note. Okay, I'm playing it in octaves, and then it'll be I'm going to keep it really low underneath the whole thing. All right, so let's see how this goes. Here's my big entrance. Hope I don't blow it. All right, that last note, I'll have to time it to the retardando. So let's go ahead and quantize that.
Do you use Pro Tools or Logic or Live?
I'm using Cubase.
Oh, that's right. I don't know why I've known you now for 10 or 15 years. I think I ask you this every time we're together. And
well, here's the thing. I've only been on Cubase for a couple of years. I was on Cakewalk for 30 years until they went out of business, and then I had to switch over to something, and I ended up going with Cubase. And it's a really nice product. I like it a lot. But you know what? They all have the same features. They all do the same things. It's just whatever you know best. And I had to start from scratch and learn a new DAW. But it's all right.
I was on Cubase for a couple of years, then I went to rehab. I'm over it.
Good to hear that. Okay. All right. So the next thing I want to add is a synth pad underneath it. And the idea of this is that it's going to be very subtle. And this is the string, it's not a string pad. I didn't want to do just like a string pad or anything organic like a Hammond B3 organ or anything like that. So I picked this, it's called Soft Air Pad, and it actually comes from the Project Alpha library. And this is what it sounds like. So I was looking for something with somewhat of an ethereal kind of a sound, and it's going to be very subtle. It's going to be way in the background, and I'm not going to be putting in a lot of notes. It's just for support, really. And so let's see if we can do that. Here we go. Cool. All right. So I'll probably end up taking out some of the notes in there. But I like to put in a lot of notes and then give me choices later on. But I just, I hit notes that are in the chord.
So when you say take out some of the notes, you're talking about just in that part.
Yeah. Because, I started off with just an open fifth. Not a Jack Daniels, just interval of a G and a D. And then I start adding, on the C chord, I've got a G, a D, and an E. Okay, so it starts adding texture. And then when we move to a D chord, it's just a big triad. And maybe that's too much. Maybe I just want to go back to an open fifth on a D chord.
Can you talk for a minute before we move on to the next part about voicings and how, in your mind, you pick a voicing to start with because you think it'll add a certain texture or maybe embellish a certain emotion, and you get a few bars into it. Do you ever go, that's not really the emotion where I want this to go? It's a pretty sounding chord, but I think I need to revoice it. Does that sort of stuff, do you have that internal conversation in your head while you're laying tracks
Totally.
down?
Yeah, because I go back to like orchestral writing where you have an entire frequency spectrum of low notes, middle notes, and high notes, where the guitar is really kind of a mid-range instrument. Most of the notes I played are kind of in the middle. So I either want to add stuff that's either above it or below that. And this particular voicing is actually above the guitar. So everything I played on the guitar is below this first note. Okay. I think I'll move on to, I want to add a violin, a string line. And that one's going to be really high. Okay. So the idea of the pad is to just add sort of an ethereal support texture to it. It's not meant to be highlighted as there's a string, there's a pad underneath. It's, again, this is primarily a guitar piece. We're just adding support. So the next thing I'm going to add is a violin, a string line, and this is a beautiful violins pad from Berlin Strings, and I'm not going to bring this in until we get to the bridge. So I'm just going to be starting from the bridge section because we've been building up and building up. So the first A section, the first half of the A section is just guitar. Then we brought in a bass, which was that low piano. Then we get into the B section. So then that's where I'm going to start bringing in the strings, but in a very subtle way. And then that's going to continue until we go out. So it's building and building and building. But again, the focus is on the guitar. So I want to make sure that everything I do is not a, hey, look at me. Okay? It's all about support. And I can't remember what I was going to play for this, but all right, this one I might have to take a couple passes just to see what works. So we're going in the B section, and that's starting on the E minor. There we go. That started a bar early. Why did it do that? Okay, one more time. All right, well, it was okay. This is also where I'm going to add some more piano, and it's going to be kind of a little tinkling sound. Okay, again, to add support and also to kind of to blend with the violin sound. I think I'm going to start about the same place on the bridge. Yeah, okay. Let's try this. Okay. I feel like that commercial. That was okay. Just okay.
Somebody asked the question, I think it's Jerry Jennings, what are you going to do about melody? And I think I know what the answer is, which is if you don't really build in a full melody, maybe it's touches of melody or what I would call melody light. Can you address the general issue of melody in a cue?
Yeah, well, anytime you have melody, you always run the risk of conflicting with dialogue in a scene because you don't know how the music is going to be used. So this is more about setting up an emotion. And that's why on the guitar, I had that high D common to every chord, because that,
Right.
in essence, kind of resembles a melody, but it's a very static melody. It doesn't move anywhere at all.
Right.
And some of these other things, like what I was doing on the piano, it's almost like a counter melody, really.
That's a good explanation.
Oh, good.
No, it is, because this is a really important point, especially for people just starting out with cues. They don't really understand necessarily what the difference between an instrumental and an instrumental cue is. And and the issue of melody, I've always explained it to our members for at least 10 years, if not 20, that when you add melody to a cue, if it does what the vocal melody would have done in a song, it ends up sounding like 101 strings covering a Beatles song, that it no longer has the same vibe that a cue does, which is wallpaper, underscore, emotion, all those other things. The
Yeah.
melody makes it almost cheesy.
Yeah, it does become music at that point. And the intent of music is, to be just wallpaper. I could, go back later and find an instrument and add a melody to it. But I can almost guarantee you that whoever uses this track will not use the melody version.
Right.
I mean, whatever you do for melody, it should be kept out of the way and very simple. But let me just go ahead and play back what I've done here, this section, from the bridge to the end with the string and the high piano, and let's see if it's something. Yeah, I don't know if I'll make. I think I needed to change the quantization there. Oh, okay. I think that's going to be better. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's try it. Here we go. Okay, you might have heard some notes out of place. I was adjusting the velocity so they weren't. There was a couple notes that were overbearing, and I didn't want them as loud. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so now we're going to do something crazy here. I'm going to add. Oh, I have a couple other things I'm going to add. Where's my other? 2. One second here. There we go. Okay, so I had the nylon string. I recorded it on the wrong track. I had to move it. Okay, so I'm going to record a second acoustic guitar, and it's actually going to be just be playing some little fills to try to add some more momentum to the finger picking sound. Oh, okay. So essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm doing that. Actually, I learned this trick from George Harrison. So, you play the guitar, one guitar in a key, and then you put on a capo, and then you play the same chord changes, but in a higher register. So I'm going to be fingering it as if it were in the key of D, but it'll actually still be in the key of G. So that just adds some more harmonics to the notes.
And would you double that? When you have that double, would you pan them opposite each other?
I wouldn't do a hard pan. It would be just a little bit of separation.
Like a 10 and 2?
Yeah, so that there's some clarity between the two instruments. Yeah, so let's see what this sounds like. So again, I'm turning off the speaker, so you're only going to hear this guitar, and it's going to sound really dumb, but but then we'll play it all back, and it'll be fantastic. Okay. So I got my capo. Okay. Here we go. Got the chords. Okay. So when you're playing in a different key, you got to remember to play different chords. All right, here we go. One more time. Okay, so doing it that way, you guys get to hear all my blemishes.
Time to break out the Clearasil for guitars.
Oh my. Okay. Well, I'm going to play that back and see if that's anything. In my head, it sounded way better. Okay, here's everything. All right. Well, interesting.
It sounds like this used to be Grandma's room in the house, but now it's the nursery. But let's not talk about what happened to Grandma.
Yeah, we put her in the home.
Yeah, I love that episode of HGTV.
Okay, I'm going to do one more pass on this because I think I can do an improvement on it.
Okay.
I think for a moment I went into Here Comes the Sun.
Yeah, people were talking about that in the chat room, and if you notice that after you put a part in, go, well, that might be a little too close. I mean, obviously, it's not close enough for copyright infringement because that's really not the whole thing. You're just playing a lick,
Mhm.
but the lick is so identifiable. Might you take that out later and go, yeah, that might make a library not want to sign it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think I repeated it several times, and it's it's just a common guitar lick on that G on that D form of a chord.
Right.
Um, and I've played "Here Comes the Sun" a zillion times.
Mhm.
Let me play back the whole thing now, but I'm gonna play it back with the nylon string rather than the first steel string guitar.
Okay.
And let's see if there's that a different quality between the nylon string and the steel string in the upper register. Okay, so a couple of things. So first thing I might try is take out that "Here Comes the Sun" guitar and put back in the steel string and keep those two same parts, but pan them. Let's see how this sounds. So I'm going to take out that high guitar. I might take out the strings too because I'm not real crazy about what they're doing. So let me try that. Okay. So steel string and nylon string playing together in harmony,
Okay.
perfect harmony. Yeah, so maybe I'll bring the strings back at this last part here. So yeah, I'm kind of favoring those two guitars together. So I might stick with that for the time being.
Okay.
So let's see. So I'm going to mute the first part of that string part, and then just kind of bring it in at the end. I might need to fiddle with some of the piano notes a little bit. And I think the nylon string has some intonation problems, so I might have to retune it and do it again. But I won't do it on your dime. Okay, let me run through that one more time.
Okay. This is real reality.
Yeah, so overall, it's not horrible. It needs some EQing and some tightening up of the notes. There's a little bit of sloppy playing in there.
Somebody asked the question, how much post-production would you do once you have the track where you want it, all the parts where you want it? How much tweaking of EQ, reverb, compression, all that kind of stuff would you be doing to the track?
I try to set up templates that already have a lot of those things built in. So it should be minimal. Right now, because I'm playing back over my speakers fairly loud, so you guys can pick it up over this little microphone. But I'll listen back in a better listening environment, and try to work out, because like right now the piano is like really boomingly low, so I might have to roll off some of the low end on that, but it's hard to tell at this volume level. So not a horrible amount of post production. Yeah, and of course it's easier in MIDI to fix timing issues with quantization.
Right.
It takes a little bit more work with audio recording. Oh, there was one other thing I'm going to record. I forgot. Is I'm gonna try putting in a little shaker in there to add a little extra motion once we starting from the bridge on out. So I'll do that. So I'm going to use this little guy here. This is one of the Natural Acoustics Lab. Everybody knows Al.
Yeah, for those who don't, Al DeSico, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a longtime taxi member that actually sells those at the Road Rally, and they really do sound good, and they're surprisingly cost effective for how well they're made and how good they sound.
And they're very loud. I've got this other one I have. It's a little smaller, but it's way louder.
Wow.
So there's this kind of loudness and this one. So we're going to do like this sideways motion. So in the bridge, I'm just going to do a backbeat, and then in the last A section, it's going to eighth notes just to keep driving the rhythm. So just because it felt like it needs something. It needs a little bit of something.
Do you ever think like an editor? Now, obviously, you know really well how editors use cues, and just for those of you who might watch this that are new to this part of the business, it's extremely rare. Like almost never does a cue get used in its entirety. So the question I have for you, Steve, is: do you kind of address the parts of the cue like think like an editor might, and add stuff that might make it more usable or appealing to an editor? Section by section?
Yeah, I mean, there really should be edit points, and I actually didn't do a very good job on this particular cue. There should have been some points where the editor could easily cut between the A section and the B section. I'll have to go back and listen to that. Um, yeah, my bad on that one, guys.
Well, it depends on how good the editor is with editing music as well.
Yeah, but just in terms of, because you're right, you're not going to use the whole cue. So that's why there's not a whole lot of variation on between the beginning and end, and even the middle sounds a lot like the beginning and the end. Just minor variations. But it has to change somewhat, and it needs to keep building, from the beginning to the end. And that's why we're going to add a little bit of shaker to add a little bit more motion to it, and a little bit more energy.
Okay.
So let's do that. Let's move on to starting from the bridge.
I
That
gotta
must have been
say,
fun to watch.
I was gotta say, a solo shaker track is very much like watching paint dry.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay, so let's see if that's something. Cool. Yeah. So there was, when I came in on the last day section with the straight eighth notes, I had a little bit of timing issue, but I can cut and paste from where I did finally pick up the rhythm. So that's one thing that I don't have to worry about intonation on a shaker. I can just go in and cut out a bar and just repeat it. So that's real nice with digital editing. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that's all we're going to do on this piece. I will do some cleanup on the notes, and I may have to redo the nylon string. I'll check the intonation on that. Maybe I can tune it with some digital tools.
Can you do one playback by giving it a little more overall level? Just approximating a mix.
Oh, well. Yeah, I'll probably do a couple passes. First one will be like a mixing pass,
Okay.
and then hopefully it'll be better. So let's see where we're at here. All right. Yes, I brought the shaker way down and brought the strings down. I did roll off a little of the low end on the piano. So let's do one more.
Okay. It's actually become like contemplative and hopeful.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say contemplative and hopeful, because that happens a lot. You start off writing something and then it sort of just becomes something else. It just
Right.
grows.
I had a really specific question now. First of all, I want to let everybody know that the audio you're hearing, the music, is actually coming through one of these microphones. Whoa. And so obviously you're going to hear it a lot better when Steve posts up the final mix of it. Excuse me, but it really underscores something that we say all the time and have been for a very long time, and I know you're a firm believer, which is less is more. It's a really simple track. Didn't take you a whole lot of time to put it together, even with cleanup and a final mix. This will be a very serviceable track, meaning there are a lot of different ways an editor or music supervisor could use that. Ken Mesford said that I felt like I was on hold.
Your calls are very important to us.
Yes, that's right. And we promise we're sanitizing every armrest and every tray table on every flight.
Well, yeah, I mean, this track should sit nicely behind anything.
Yeah. Let me ask you some of the questions. We still have 13 minutes
Sure.
left. I want to ask you some of the questions that people asked during the entire process of you doing this. What's your signal chain for recording acoustic guitar typically?
Okay, so I've got this gauge microphone that I'm using. I've just had this forever. And it's got a really nice tone for acoustic guitar, and it's going into, I've got an M track, an M Audio M track quad preamp digital interface, USB interface into my computer, and that's pretty much it. It's um, I don't have any kind of compressors attached to the input chain. Everything is done in the box, through Cubase.
Any EQ that you would add on a guitar typically, or do you record it pretty straight in?
Well, I put it in straight in, and it's going to depend on the rest of the instruments. Now, I could hear from this that I need to do a lot of EQing to make this fit, because everything. Well, maybe it's because it's really loud in here, but I seem to have a lot of low end coming out of everything today. So I will have to treat that a little bit and maybe bring up some of the highs a little bit. But that's what like the piano and the string thing was meant to add. It was the highs.
Can you recommend any good virtual guitar plugins? Have you ever tried? I mean, you're a great guitar player, so I don't even know that you've ever used one.
No, the only plugins that I use are for amp modeling.
Have you ever gone crazy and taken an acoustic guitar track that you've recorded through the Gauge 87 and run it through like a Marshall stack or anything just for fun?
No, I've never done anything like that.
Oh, come on, Steve, get crazy. What if a publisher asks for a faster version? Would you need to redo the whole thing, or could you just speed up this track?
I would choose to re-record it. You can use tools to digitally speed up an audio track, but I don't think they sound good. It's easier to speed them up than to slow them down, because you get a lot more digital artifacts when you slow them down.
Right.
But I would just re-record it. I mean, once I've played the part, I kind of know it, and I could probably re-record the parts, in 5 minutes. Just listen to back what I did and then just recreate it.
We already asked this one. Is less always more? I think you would say yes to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you saw, we added some things, and then we ended up taking them out because it was just too much. And I still might, take out a few more things, in the final mix, because I kind of need to be in my own space to do it. Like I'm focusing on your questions, and you're really annoying me. I can't get my work done.
I'm sorry. How much time might you spend on post-processing once you've got the track down and you're happy with all the parts? Would it take on this particular track? Would this be a half hour of adding a little salt and pepper to it? Would it be an hour? How long might that take?
Probably a half hour at the most. I mean, because there's not a lot of tracks to it.
Right. How many tracks do you have now? Like 6, 7?
So there's 2 acoustic guitar tracks, a shaker, and we dropped the other acoustic guitar, so that's 3. We have 2 pads, that's 5, and a piano is 6.
Wow.
So that was 6 tracks.
It just goes to show how less is definitely more. Simplicity works, and I mean, it totally shows how you can create a mood, an emotion, and a texture. I don't mean to say it like this, but with very little effort. You don't
I
need
think the problem that most people run into is trying to overthink it, and it's like you're not trying to create the greatest piece of music you've ever made, really, because you're not writing this for the radio. You're writing this to be played behind a scene, and it, like you used the word serviceable. It's not a derogatory term. That means it can be used in a lot of different things. It's not going to interfere. It's not going to get in the way,
Right.
and it sets the right tone and emotion.
That's how you make the most money with the piece. And you know, people who lean toward the artistic side of things, musical things, might say, "Oh my gosh, being serviceable, that's just commoditizing music." But I'll say it again, and please, jazz people, don't give me any grief for this. But you know, doing this stuff is like painting houses by day, and then you can certainly do your, you know, grand opus and your really creative stuff that, you know, fulfills that part of your musical soul at night. One doesn't have to preclude the other, but wouldn't you rather be doing serviceable, usable, money-making cues for your day job than, you know, working at a 7-Eleven or digging ditches or putting windshields on cars at an auto factory? I mean, it's got to be satisfying. Plus, tell me if I'm nuts, but doesn't this make you better at doing that creative stuff because you learn the sounds you have in your libraries, you learn how to be a faster, better engineer, a better on-the-fly producer? All that stuff comes with practice. This is something that makes you money while giving you the practice.
Yeah, well, as we know, the more cues that you can write, the more money you're going to make. So the faster you can do them, the better. And really, you're learning a language. You're learning how to put together music that evokes a certain emotion and works in a certain style, and you just learn, you know, quickly how to speak that language. So when it does come time to write your album of, you know, whatever your opus is, you have those tools already in your palette.
One last question, and then I want to ask you something about the book. Do you master? I'm trying to make sense of what I wrote down here. Do you master by bouncing the track and then mastering it, or do you master right off of the mix bus?
So I'll do a sub mix, like a full mix of all the tracks, bounce it into one track in my DAW. I won't bounce it out as a complete track. Then I can do some mastering on that completed track. I can add additional EQ and get the levels set.
Okay. Let's talk about the book for a moment. For all of you who might be watching that haven't seen Steve and I do a show yet, I plug the hell out of this book because it's that good. You literally will shave years off of your arc to becoming a successful TV composer by reading this book. Steve, is there like a favorite chapter or a favorite topic or something that you feel like, wow, if you read nothing else in the book, make sure you read the chapter about that? Or is the whole book, I mean, the whole book is amazing, but...
Well, I mean, not specifically a chapter, although understanding contracts is really important. I think everybody should understand what you're signing. But one takeaway that I want everybody to get from the book is understanding emotion and how to convey emotion, because essentially, no matter what style of music you're writing, that's what you're presenting in a music track, and it's going to get used if it conveys the emotion that they're seeking for a particular scene. So, you know, it's like being an actor. You know, you don't get up and just recite some lines. You have to put something into it. You have to become that person and that character, and you know, you're happy or you're sad or whatever you're doing. You know, it has to be believable. So really understanding and getting deep into that emotion, that's really critical.
What if a library were to reach out to you and say, "Hey, Steve, I need a track such as the one you created now that's, you know, kind of hopeful and contemplative," and you start building this track on, you know, you're on a mission to do that kind of track. You create something else. There are people that have the thought, well, it doesn't matter. I created something so awesome, they just won't care that it's not what they asked for. I can tell by the look on your face. Talk to us about the logic in that kind of thinking.
Yeah, you're just asking for trouble, because they've asked you for an apple and you give them a red apple, but you didn't take the time to understand that what they really wanted was a green apple. Okay, it is an apple, but it's not the one that they were looking for, you know. So trying to force this red apple on them, it's not going to make it any better, you know. They have to have this green apple. So if you write something like, you know, I think this is a good example in this piece. It wasn't as light and breezy, I think, as I had originally intended.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's nothing wrong with that. If the listing, you know, or the brief that I'm getting from a client is for something light and breezy, and it ended up being this, I have two choices. I could either try to rewrite it and make it more light and breezy, or I can just put it aside and save it in the contemplative, uplifting, hopeful genre in that folder. And when a brief comes out asking for that, then I'll have it. But yeah, trying to force them to take this when it doesn't exactly fit what they're asking for, they won't pick it, they won't use it, they won't sign it. You know, you're wasting your time.
That's a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but it's part of the money making formula in doing music for media is just give them what they want.
Exactly. And, you know, you didn't waste your time. You created a
Right.
queue. You know, I've got this queue sitting here, and now when that opportunity comes up, I will have a queue for it.
That's right. And I'll be a co-writer. Oh
There you
no,
go.
I would only be the co-writer on Light and Breezy. I wanted to ask this question from Paul House because he stayed up literally all night in the UK and has to go to work in a couple hours. So Paul, thank you, man. That's warms my heart. I had about 3.5 hours of sleep last night. So while you're falling asleep at your desk at work today, I'm right there with you. From Steve's book and chapter 8, Steve lists some keys that you should play in for certain moods. Has that info changed since it was written, or is it still valid?
Um, I'd have to look up that chapter. You know, unless it was specifically talking about like the difference between, say, a minor key and a major key. I mean, there's some generalizations about major is a happier key typically, and use minor keys for something, you know, sadder. Um,
Yeah, you list C D protagonism, C F sharp outer space, C A
oh,
flat
those were
fantastic.
okay. So those were like chord progressions.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Maybe I should look in a different section. I know that okay. Yeah, that is at the end of chapter 8, page 85. So I think that's what Paul's referring to.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah. So there was that. There was a great video by that college professor. I can't remember his name. It's in the book there, Scott something, where he defined these relationships between chords that represent certain feelings, and he analyzed famous film scores to show you how, you know, Back to the Future used, you know, from, you know, use um, the Locrian mode. Um, you know, everything that was listed in there, you know, is, I mean, it does still apply. Yeah.
yeah, I've actually seen those videos, and
Scott Murphy, I think, was the name.
yeah, and he's got a whole series of videos that I've actually featured probably 4 of them in taxi newsletters um, over the years. I think that guy is an amazing analyst of why things work in film scores. Just amazing. Anyway, well, with that, let's say goodnight because we're exactly 5:30 right on the dot. Thank you
Perfect.
very, yeah, very, very much for doing this again, man. Everybody in the chat room has been loving it all afternoon long. And to remind everybody, first of all, Ariana will kick me under the table if I don't say hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and somebody is going to win a copy. I still have like 2 copies left to give away by putting a great question. Whoever has the best question in the comment thing after we put the video up, you know, the archive version up in YouTube, which will be in a few minutes. Takes them a little time to process it. And yeah, if you don't have the book yet, get it. What else did I need to say? Subscribe, give us a like. Any closing thoughts from you, Steve?
Well, I'll work on mixing the audio track and have it
Okay.
up on SoundCloud, and I'll actually you know, I'll send you a link, but I'll make a comment in this video with a link to to the final piece.
Great, and we'll add it in the whatever that section is right under the video. You do it in the comment section, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me again.
Oh man, I love having you on the show. You've become such a good friend over the years. One of the few people that actually really loves my sense of humor. And no, it's just
I get you, man.
Thank you. I get you too. Send my best to Leanne, and hopefully we'll be able to give each other a hug in the not too distant future. Thanks for doing this.
Hope so. Yeah, haven't seen you in a while. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you again.
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Bye, everybody.
And bye to the rest of you guys. See you tomorrow for an exciting episode of Taxi's Quarantini Happy Hour. Woo! That was enthusiastic.